konnichiwa, guten tag, ni hao, hola, bonjour, marhaba. In other words, hello. To many, these are simply utterances, phrases, or perhaps even gibberish. But to the speakers of the languages that these originate from, this is part of their identity. In my free time, I'm an amateur linguist. I study all kinds of languages, but I put a focus on Japanese. Here today, I'm going to show you, or rather tell you, how languages impact everything, specifically the mind and our perception of reality. In linguistics, this is called the secure-form hypothesis. In the 1930s, Benjamin Lee Ward, under the influence of his mentor, Edward Sapir, argued that the language that we speak changes how we think. He conducted studies on indigenous American language called Hopi. He argued that Hopi had no consideration for time and worked as a polar opposite to the European construct. In reality, yes, Hopi time was different, but it wasn't that different. It had future tense, it had words like until or while after. And nevertheless, this sparked the idea in the minds of many linguists that got them thinking, how does language influence our cognition? Let's take a look at time in other languages. In Uzbek Maya, there's no words for before, after, since, until. It doesn't have tense. Instead, it's replaced by an incredibly complex system that has a start point and end point and describes how the action moves through time. This is called aspect. In Mandarin Chinese, there's also no tense. To explain tense is like the ed on quote, I quote, represents the past, or the word will and I will eat. So in Mandarin, I will eat is simply expressed as I eat, or I eat it, 吃. But how would you be able to differentiate when you're eating to a plate? Certainly that won't work, right? Well, in Mandarin, they use other tactics, usually context. So, for example, somebody asks you, what are you doing tomorrow? You might say, I'm eating. Despite the fact that you can say will be eating, they understand that the action takes place in the future. Or somebody might ask, what are you doing at the event? Well, I will eat at the event. Or I'm at the event right now, I'm eating. Or I ate at the event. You gave them context as to when the event was. So you might say last week, the event is in the future, or next week, or it's right now, but you don't actually add those little particles and those other details because context does that work. Let's look at another interesting artifact of Chinese. The word for blue can also be green. Japanese borrowed this idea. When I was in Japan in the back of the car, my host sister pointed up at a traffic light and said something along the lines of, look at that light, ano hikari, and I was a little bit shocked to see her describe the clearly green light as blue. But even with the word midori, meaning green, existing in Japanese, they still describe this very bright green light as blue. The sea might also be described as olive blue. Now, merging the colors green and blue isn't that impressive. Think about how other languages might do it. If I were to show you my shirt, or this piece of paper, and this piece of paper, what colors would you say they are? Maybe blue, green, pink? But if you're a speaker of the Wolven language, you'd say just one word, pick. And why is this? So in English, we have 11 basic color terms. Russian, there's 12. In Wolven, it has just 3. And Paul Kay and Brent Berlin found that if the language were to have a set number of color terms, they could figure out exactly what colors they were. For languages with just 3 colors, it's always black, red, and white. And that's because black and white are the colors of day and night. That's very important information. And red is the color of fire, blood, meat, fruit, food. It's also very important. But why have a word for blue? What else is blue? Maybe the sky, but why would you describe that if you already know the sky is blue? Speakers of Piraha arguably take this a step farther. The only words for colors are black and white. Sure, they have words to describe red, but even then they just say it looks like blood. The language is amazing in other ways as well. It lacks tense, like I mentioned earlier, incredibly lacks in numbers. According to an MIT study, it is said to be potentially the only language without numbers. Then instead they use words like weak, a pile, a lot, many, a few. And in his documentary, Piraha, The Grammar of Happiness, David Everett, the man who documented Piraha, is quoted as saying, I was asked if Piraha mothers could not count their children, to which I responded exactly yes. And to paraphrase them, they don't need to know how many children they have in order to love them, to know their faces, their names, their personalities. So I'm going to leave you with this question. How is the language that I'm speaking right now influencing your mind? What images did you see? What concepts did you grasp? And if I were speaking another language, what would be different? Ultimately, I do believe that language impacts how we think. but it's not black and white or day and night. But it, in subtle ways, can influence us. When I began learning Japanese, I most certainly started to think differently. And that's not something I can really explain farther. So thank you for your time.